evening, viewers. The coronavirus has surely unsettled the structure of education and learning, including teaching and assessment methodologies. Only a handful of colleges and schools could only adopt the online teaching methods. The pandemic has significantly disrupted the higher education sector as well, which is critical determinant of country's economic future. Strategies are required to prepare higher education sector for evolving the demand supply trends across the nation, especially with the limited mobility at this moment. The bigger concern, however, on everybody's mind is the effect of the disease on employment rate. Recent graduates in India are fearing withdrawal of job offers from corporate houses because of the current situation. The disruption in the delivery of the education is pushing the policymakers to figure out how to drive the engagement at scale while ensuring the inclusive e-learning solutions and tackling the digital divide. Whereas the immediate measures are required to mitigate the effects of pandemic on e-learning modules and operational guidelines, job offers, internship programs, the research projects, there's a long-term picture of building the digital infrastructure to enable the higher education institutions and the ed tech to seamlessly integrate. With me, there's a panelist. There is the panel which doesn't require much of an introduction, but let me just introduce the panel for the evening. Professor Anil Sahasrabuddhe, the chairman of AICTE. Professor Sahasrabuddhe, he was a former professor of mechanical engineering at the IIT Guwahati, and now he is the chairman at the All India Council of Technical Education starting 17th July 2015. Dr. Sahasrabuddhe has illustrious career of 31 years, held at several academic, research, and administrative positions. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Sahasrabuddhe.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Dr. Abhay Wagh, the director of the Directorate Technical Education, he has been working in the field of technical education from last 29 years in various capacity as a teaching faculty, a trainer, administrator, and a policymaker. Experience in implementing several projects for technical education. He has worked in many positions, including director of Maharashtra State Board of Technical Education, Deputy Secretary to the Government of Maharashtra in Higher and Technical Education, to say a few. A very warm welcome, Dr. Abhay.
Good afternoon and namaskar to everybody. Thank you.
Professor Sheetal Kumar Ravandale, the president of MATPO, the Maharashtra Association of Training and Placement Officers. He's also the dean and the placement officer and the Industry Institute interaction with Pimpri Chinchwad College of Engineering. He has been awarded, he's a recipient of Career Guru Award in the Visionary Mind category for insightful efforts and establishing best practices towards implementing the overall education employment ecosystem in the country at National Employability Conclave. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, College Dunia.
Dr. Suhas Pednekar, the Vice Chancellor for Mumbai University, who has been over 30 years of academic experience as the undergraduate, postgraduate teacher and a researcher himself. Professor Pednekar's areas of research interest are green chemistry, pharmacological and chemical investigation of medicinal plants and marine biotechnology. He has presented his research findings in many national and international conferences and has published over 50 research papers in the national and international journals of repute. A very warm welcome, Dr. Suhas.
Thank you very much and good afternoon to everyone.
And last but not the least, Professor Sanjay Jadhav, the secretary of the MATPO, the Maharashtra Association of Training and Placement Officers. He's the dean of Srimati Indira Gandhi College of Engineering, Navi Mumbai since 2018. We all know him as one of the active members of the MATPO for last 3 years. He's an expert in career counseling and always thrived forward in bridging the gap between the industry skills and technical education, which will be a key aspect for the discussion today. Very warm welcome, Professor Jadhav.
Good evening and thank you.
So starting off with Professor, what are your thoughts, the situation in hand, and how AICTE is improving this in this students and the colleges alike?
Hello. Is it on?
Professor Sastapati, I think your mic is mute.
Yeah, I have started two devices. That is the problem. I will switch off this because I was not able to connect with it. Needed password, so I went to my
No issue, sir.
this mobile and mobile to I have come here. So I will just quit this place and then come. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, AICT was in a way sort of geared up without knowing that there would be a COVID crisis because of multiple ways that we have started operating since the last 2 months. Number one, the Swayam platform, which was created about 2.5 years ago for MOOCs courses to be created indigenously in India. This platform was entirely created with the help of MHRD by AICTE, which has more than 2,500 courses. Most of the NPTEL earlier courses are also taken on to the Swayam platform, and many more courses of other domains like art, commerce, science, law, medicine, they have also come on board. And the base of a number of students using this has increased beyond 10 million, and as many as about 100 plus countries are also watching this platform. So that means for last 2.5 years, some way online education was in place, both by creating a platform for such online education, and secondly, empowering universities and colleges for allowing credit of the order of 20% from their academic curriculum from the Swayam courses. So that means if a college wants to have some of the credits of Swayam to be incorporated into the transcripts and grade sheets of the university, that empowerment was made by regulation of both UGC and AICTE. So one side there was empowerment, and the other side a regulation which empowers and allows them to use this. The next part is we had very interestingly the new concept of flipped classrooms or blended classes, which were also being promoted in form of several workshops. So this is very interesting because of late, because a lot of information being available on the web, in internet, in YouTube, in different MOOCs platforms, students would not be interested in coming to class only for the sake of attendance. They need something more than that. And therefore, faculty is required to ask students in advance to watch a video or two and come prepared for the class. And in the class, if there are any difficulties in understanding that, they have to deal with that first, and then ask several assignments and challenging problems where they will sit together in teams and then solve them. So that problem solving ability of communication, I think these are developed in the classroom in the form of interaction, very high interaction. I think instead of one-way traffic, this is what was the need of the hour. So this was already being practiced in some way or the other. And therefore, when this lockdown started and many colleges were required to be closed even prior to the formal lockdown in the month of March, that is 25th March, many universities and colleges asked students to go home, and then online classes began to happen. There were three types of institutions. One of them which were already fully geared up with all the infrastructure, they could transit from one mode to the other mode almost seamlessly. There were others who had some infrastructure, some training, but not fully geared up, not fully used. They had to immediately start doing it with some pitfalls here and there. The real affected ones were the third type, where there was no infrastructure built in the past, and therefore building this infrastructure is going to be most prominent and important in the future of COVID-19. That is what they have all realized. The last part is, having said all this, there were students who went to their homes, which were in remote rural areas, some of them in tribal areas like in the northeast, maybe Nagaland, Mizoram, or Arunachal Pradesh, or Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, where connectivity has still issues. Even if the fiber link has reached there, many times because of landslides and heavy rainfall, they get cut off. And therefore, there is a urgent need for non-stop 24/7 internet services to be available. Otherwise, they can't take the classes. They will not be able to write online examination, which many universities are practicing. I think this is where we stand, and many other issues are there. I will stop at this because there are many panelists. They have to speak also, and then there are question answers where I will add in more points from the perspective of AICTE.
Thanks a lot, Professor Sahasraputhy. Dr. Abhivag, your first thoughts on the situation and how DT is basically empowering the students and the colleges?
Initially, thank you, College Dunia, that you have come up with in this negative situation. You are connecting us with the students digitally. That is really a wonderful thing, because last month or so, we all are connected with the faculty members, with the different webinars and all. But today, I'm happy to have a word with students also, and different policy makers, right from AICT to the university, and all, even my colleagues in the state of Maharashtra who are working different institutions as such, and all the faculty members, of course. I feel today's situation, I will define it as that we are in a VUCA world. VUCA is an acronym, I mean VUCA, wherein V is volatility, U is uncertainty, C is complexity, and A is ambiguity. And you will all agree with me really that today's situation, that everybody have seen unprecedented changes in last 2 months or so. Then we have observed the whole 1 month or so, the total world is almost on a, you can say, in a stop mode. Every sector, right from economy even up to education, we found that yes, we are slowing down, or what, we are going down somewhere, and we are not coping up with the today's world. Then is it a situation, and how to come out of the situation? That the best answer to VUCA world today, what I feel is that yes, we should be innovative thinking only, with a strategic leadership, if we can give, with little bit skills in us. Hello. Little bit skills in us, and those will surely take us from this VUCA situation out. Coming out of VUCA, now if I talk about our education today as such in a global situation, we have seen nowadays the same situation. If VUCA is existing in a layman, if somebody asks me, definitely the answer for VUCA will be the change is the answer. Now today's situation also, I will say that in an education world today, yes, we have to change innovatively every day. And as Professor Sahasrabuddhe told me just now, what he discussed, that the education scenario everywhere is changing. The actual need as on today, what I feel is that India, like country, when we say we are third largest in the world as such, number one, of course, US, second is China, and India's education system is the third largest in the world, because 24,000 universities, we have almost 250 million active learners in those universities studying across the world. When I say India, then definitely our stake is around 26.4 millions, which are really, I can say, active learners when I say. And as far as Maharashtra stake is concerned, we are 2.95 million learners. When I say this with a GR of 31%, I say that all these digital platforms, what we are considering nowadays with the WebEx, with the Zoom, or with different channels of NPTEL and all, the basic $1 million question comes in front of me is that really we are reaching to a last corner of my student studying in a rural college of that university. This is the real question in front of us, because we have definitely a good digital platforms nowadays which are coming up, which are supporting us. The technology, we have to change with the technology, no doubt. But simultaneously, we have to think a lot as far as capacity building. For that, yes, that I can connect my student who is in a rural place and he is a real learner, and I should reach to them at a larger level, I can say. And this is what the challenge with. I will pass on this question to others, because definitely in post-COVID situation and post-session, I will answer that yes, the capacity building is equally important with these all digital platforms, what we have today, which are in practice, which all faculty members are practicing in different institutions. Thank you. Thank you, Tarun.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Wagh. Very insightful comments here. We'll surely get back to the post-COVID situation and how the infrastructure needs to be built. Professor Ravandale, your perspective on these issues at the hand, and how Smart TPO is actually helping the universities, colleges, and the students.
Yeah, thank you so much. So if you see a small virus, which really is not even open, or we can see it with open eyes, and such virus has brought entire world to the standstill. Almost around 137 crore Indians and 780 crore people across the world. They are really disturbed, and almost all of them are locked down. And if you see Indian scenario, even though in 935 universities across India, 11,000 across world are there, but most of us are now shifting from offline mode to mixed mode, we can say, or probably currently we are into full-time online, but maybe in the next coming future, we will be using offline plus online. And as far as training placement officers are concerned, or students' future is concerned, then maybe at this point of time, students are more worried about their exams. Instead of earlier, whether the syllabus will be completed or not, that was the question. But now they are thinking about exams. And in some of the states, government has taken the decision to cancel the exams up to fourth year, and final year students only have to give the exams. So they are some of them are a bit relieved. But if we see situation, it is said that crisis gives opportunities. So many opportunities our students are getting. As far as Smart TPO is concerned, we have conducted many industry institute interaction meets. Recently, we conducted around 20 webinars for students, principals, faculty, as well as placement officers across Maharashtra state. And we are seeing that good response students are also giving. And I think to cope up with the situation as far as infrastructure is concerned, there was a concept earlier, Akash Tab. So that concept, I think that kind of infrastructure we have to give to the students, and I think it will definitely help us. Remotely, we can conduct the theory lectures, but practicals we have to conduct on virtual labs. So I think development of virtual labs is equally important. And if we consider the overall system, many of the industries, they conduct balance sheets. They do balance sheet, income as well as outgoing. They check. Similarly, as a country, I think as a state, as a country, we should have human capital balance sheet, in which we have to see how many students are right now in the system. They are learning various courses, and what is the need in the market. So I think somewhere if we try to balance that, and if we say, okay, these many are becoming engineers, these many are there into diploma or MBA or architecture or science, arts, then we have to see what is the need in the market. And if we can balance, then we can plan, because first year admissions will be taking place. Those students should be informed that down the line, 5 years, 10 years, this will be the situation. This many industries will require this much of manpower. And then I think we can very easily do it. That's my opening remark. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Professor Ramandev. Dr. Suhas, what are your thoughts on how Mumbai University is helping the students and the colleges in this situation?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for giving me this opportunity. We all are going through a very critical time, but as what my co-panelist said, the crisis leads to opportunities, and also the crisis do not last forever. Yeah. We have to learn many things when we are in this situation. I feel the future of the education will depend on three important factors. One, of course, innovation. Second is technology. And third will be the customer's choice. There's going to be a lot of choices for the students, who is going to be our central focal point. Well, as I think my other co-panelists said, what we need to focus on this situation is on two things. One, how to reach the unreachable, and two, capacity building. Teaching how to teach and learning how to learn. That is what is required now. As far as University of Mumbai is concerned, it's one of the vast universities in the country. In fact, we are distributed, or rather our area covered almost 7 districts. Is a real challenge of understanding the heterogeneity in my university, right from rural or rather right from urban area to semi-urban to rural to semi-rural, even including some tribal areas where the students do not have the access of internet, forget about the other gadgets. So under this situation, we have to, I think, invest initially, and I fully agree with Professor Sahasrabudhe, what he said, that we need to concentrate even in upgrading the infrastructure to ensure even that reaches to the last student. So University of Mumbai is, and for that matter, many state universities in the country, there's definitely have challenges, but we have to come out of this. And we have to ensure, because what I said, the another challenge we have, more we use the technology, there is already a digital divide which should not get widened. So how to take care of the students? So the future will be definitely a blending learning or hybrid learning. And in this regard, no doubt, Mumbai University has already started these efforts. We have established 3 virtual classrooms. One was already there, 2 more. In fact, we have upgraded the facilities, and now we have to, or rather we have already started preparing the e-content, because even though maybe the lockdown period will be lifted, but this self or the physical distancing will continue for some time. There will be challenges. So there will be, I feel, some percentage of our otherwise used to be a campus teaching will become an online teaching. So we have to prepare ourselves in that directions. And another challenge we have, and I think that we all need to understand, that we have to maintain that quality when we prepare the online material, and how to maintain even the quality benchmark to ensure that even through online mode, students will get a quality education. So there are many aspects which, of course, as we continue, will come across. But post-COVID, I think there will be some more of different type of challenges. So particularly the state universities in the country where the population of students is always very high compared to any other institute, we will have to take care of many other aspects apart from the online teaching. So I think I stop here, but at the end I can only say that the time has come even for all the educational institutions to form cluster and share our strength and facilities rather than trying to each one duplicating the same thing again and again. So coming together and ensuring the quality, even in preparing e-content, using the facilities, that is the need of the hour. Form clusters, use your infrastructure, physical as well as intellectual, and share that. Thank you very much.
That's really some wonderful points, Dr. Suhas. Professor Sanjay Jadhav, your opening thoughts, sir?
So we can see the COVID-19 situation is pathetic now. So overall world has been damaged because of the situation. So all people are, many of the people are in lockdown. Many of the people lost their job. In fact, in America, around 2 crore people lost their job in last 1 month also. So if you see the situation in India also, many companies are refusing to rejoin the people. Many companies are revoking their salaries, even though the offer letters offered by the companies for the last year students have been revoked by some of the companies. Government is taking action against it, but we can see the situation is not good as per the comparator. So as Sahasrabudhe sir said, it's now to time to change, because it's now we have to shift to the digital platform rather than the manual platform. It should be combination of digital platform, depend on the network availability, depend on the situation of the, depend on the position, and depend on the place where you are going to implement that. The situation, we can more focus on the problem solving rather than the theoretical and rather than the traditional education. Problem solving education will be change the world, because if you see always 1 or 2 ways stops, then 3 or 4 new ways will be open in the market. So we can see the new era of the education, new era of the market, new era of the job situation, and new era of the technology to this situation. If you see the what is the where we are lagging, where world is lagging now. The world is lagging to the look. They have ignored the medical facility, because if you see only you can see the top countries like America, Italy, and Israel also, they have only 2.5 or 1.5 beds are available per 10,000 people. So this is the pathetic situation. Even though instruments, you can say medical instruments, or you can say the equipment, PPE kits, and all those things that are not available as required. So no one has focused in last many years on the medical facility and viruses and all those upcoming medical emergencies. So that needs to be the upcoming booming field in the world. The world has recognized that not only producing the battle equipment like bombs and all those things, it is not required to fight each other. It is required to survive human life, and that need to focus by the world. And this will be the new upcoming market, booming market for the students, for the job seekers, for the new education environment. And the Sasrabuddhe sir, under guidance of the Dr. Sasrabuddhe sir, AICT chairman, he's continuously, we are receiving continuously proposals, new we can say new circulars from the AICT, depend on the situation. He is very innovative, and also we are receiving some new guidelines from the DTE also for this situation. Also, Mumbai University is going in hand to hand with this situation, and they are trying to reach the students, those who are in online, getting online facilities, and those who are not getting online facilities, those are stuck in the rural areas also. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Jadhav. Professor Sasrabuddhe, there's a lot of skepticism that is going on among the student community regarding the exams going online and offline, specifically for the students who are already enrolled in their universities, let's say third or fifth semesters primarily. Are there any guidelines which have been created for the universities and the colleges for conducting these exams, whether online or whether offline, or are we completely scrapping those exams? Any thoughts around it?
No, totally scrapping of examination has not been advocated. There was a committee under UGC which was constituted for giving guidelines, and these guidelines have been already circulated to all the universities, and AICT taking cue from that for technical colleges, we have announced the same guidelines. Plus, there were some institutions which are directly under AICT, for example, standalone postgraduate diploma institutes who have nothing to do with the university system, nor with the DTE. And so special guidelines were issued for them as well, as far as both academic calendar is concerned and the nature of examination. So let me reflect on the status that exists today. There is a lot of flexibility given in terms of conduct of the examination, and that's very important, because one cap fits all is not possible, and therefore depending on which university, which autonomous institute has the entire wherewithal to conduct the online examination using technology, they are allowed to do it. So online examination is one mode, which can again be objective type only examination, and it can be even subjective, where student will type in and then that will get collected. So I think both possibilities exist. And some of the examinations could be taken by students by staying at home, not necessarily even going to the college. So one is this type of extreme online examination system, which is possible. On the other side, there could be a mix of the two, and some part will be on the mode of online examination, and the previous assignments and unit tests which were conducted till March, more than half the semester or half the year was over. So can we take the evaluation which was done already for the students into the kitty and then take care of that? So this is another model. The third one is, why not have the examinations which are staggered, and don't call all the subjects and all the students at one go, because social distancing will be required even after the lift of the lockdown. So maybe that first year students will come in the morning, and they too will be segregated, and will have all the classrooms used. So some innovative ways are required to be handled during such crisis, and each university, each institution has to innovate to take care of their own system, their own requirements. I think that's where it stands, and therefore students need not be worried. So the last part, I have received many emails stating that we have been away from home, which is some place stuck somewhere, or we have gone to our villages where there is no internet connectivity, and therefore if everything is online, we will be not in a position to take the exam. So one of the suggestions is whoever can take the examination online, let them take it and start the next year. But those who cannot, probably we can conduct their exam subsequently in the normal mode when they return to the colleges. Or you can right now promote them to the next year, like we used to have ATKT system. Even after appearing in the exam and failing in subjects, we were allowing. Now that this fellow has not actually failed, why not allow them to go to the next class, continue the studies of the next semester, and over a period of next 3-4 months, conduct the examination of the courses which were not held. So I think there are various possible models and modes in which this whole exercise can be undertaken.
Great. Professor Sahasrabudhe, my question is regarding the synchronization between the AICTE and the state boards. Do you think the synchronization will be all the more which is required considering the COVID specific problems? Do you see the pandemic actually leading to a better coordination or symbiosis between the AICTE and state board? Do you see that happening because of this situation?
I think Tarunjot, this has been the philosophy right from beginning. Unfortunately, we were probably not successful in doing it. I will tell you many examples. Every year, every college is required to give data to at least 5 or 6 agencies. They have to give to the university where the college is affiliated, to the DTE, if the institution is under TechWhip, to the TechWhip, to get approval to AICTE, if you want to get accredited to NAC and NBA, and there are ranking systems in place, NIRF. Everyone asks the data, which is almost the same data. There may be slight, difference between what I need and what some other person needs, but 80 to 90% of the data is same. But everyone is forced to give 6 times, 7 times. I think it's a hell of a job for the head of the institution to allocate this work to different faculty members. This is one side. Then secondly, when it comes to the approvals, AICTE gives this approval, then the university or the DTE committee also will visit the same college again. I think this is where we wanted collaboration between whether it is a national body of regulation or the state body, that we should undertake this whole exercise only once. And therefore, then the decisions taken by all these bodies will be the same, which we tried even with Pharmacy Council of India and Council of Architecture, which has similarities of taking care of giving approvals along with AICTE. And same is the case with the university affiliation or the DTE affiliation. So I think this talk was going on, and now the need has come so violently that we have no choice but to adapt to it. This is what I would like to say to Dr. Wagh and also the vice chancellors of all the universities. Here we have Suhas Pednekarji available. So I think we need to do this exercise.
Dr. Wagh, your comments regarding this? The synchronization between AICTE and state boards getting a little more stronger after this?
Surely, but I think first of all, I'll come to the examination as he said just now. As UGC has given certain guidelines to the states, and yesterday only the state of Maharashtra, before yesterday's decision, there was a committee formulated by Honorable Minister in the state of Maharashtra, wherein I was one of the members. My co-panelist here, Suhas Pednekar, was the convener of that committee. And we also had a very wonderful solution in Maharashtra, because see, this is the COVID pandemic has created a pathetic situation, as everybody is saying. But Maharashtra is with a GR of, as I said just now, it's a more than a national GR. We have 31.4 is the GR of Maharashtra as on today. So if you see this GR, there are 32 lakh students who are active learners and enrolled in 13 universities of state of Maharashtra. So this 32 lakhs, if you say, take across the right from the boards, which are, I mean to say, affiliating board like MSBT, Maharashtra State Board of Examinations for Polytechnics, and 13 universities across the Maharashtra. So out of these 32 lakh students, 1/3 or less than 1/3, 8 to 9 lakh students are from third year. So we took a solution that in this social, if we really want to go with the exams, then social distancing has to be maintained. Then final year, last semester exam has to be conducted in the state of Maharashtra, that we have decided, and Honorable Minister yesterday declared the whole guidelines for that, wherein we have taken 8 lakh students which are in a final year and final semester will be taking for the exam, and rest of the students we have taken a solution that yes, it should be a composite score, wherein a continuous assessment, when we call, see across the globe also, when you talk about the examination pattern and the evaluation pattern, everybody is concentrating and giving emphasis on nowadays for a continuous assessment. And I also believe that yes, the continuous assessment really is indeed in this situation, and that we have taken that yes, test 1, test 2 or assignments, whatever he has done, that 50 marks we will be converting it into, and the 50 marks for the last semester, like that we had a composite score, we will take it from all the universities, and we'll go ahead with the mark, even grade of that student. And naturally, if the students are having some ATKTs or some backlog exam, we can think of some special exam giving to them, or the next supplementary exam they will be eligible for. Coming to a next question of yours, after the examination that Dr. Sahasrabuddhe shared just now, yes, I'm happy to share with him, and he knows it well, that 1 year before we tried this, that we had the integrated model with AICT, university and us, that whenever the committee goes to inspection or sort of that visits, then we did that with their regional offices of AICT. We planned it nicely, and we have given a representative of DT, we have taken a representative of concerned university, and 1 representative from AICT, and that those type of visits we have conducted that time, and we have sent the data accordingly to AICT, and it was really wonderful model that semester we could have. But coming to a digital platform as such, why can't, I'm proposing here with, as Dr. Sahasrabuddhe is also there, why can't we have a digital model and good MIS system existing all across the globe, all across the India, so that whatever the digital model he has prepared, I have also prepared a digital model of DT. I am giving the same, assignment to my down the line people of joint director and assistant director. Why could not be the same portal? My portal can be connected with the plug-in to the AICT's portal. And like that, if every state is coming ahead, I think it will be really a wonderful integrated digital platform will come. And the whole data, which is now has been scattered with all 5 authorities like DTE, AICTE, universities and different stakeholders. There will be an integrated data and wonderful MIS will come out of this. I suppose we should work, we all should work in this direction. Thank you. Thank you.
Great points, Dr. Abheva. Dr. Suhas, do you see there's a lot of rumor around that emits that Maharashtra CET going to be scrapped? They say, do you see Maharashtra CET happening anytime soon? I mean, do you have any plans for that?
Definitely. In fact, as my co-panelist Dr. Wag said, we had a committee that is formed by our state government, and even the discussion about CET was there. And as it stands today, the decision is taken that the CET will be conducted during the first, that is the 1st July to 31st July for all UG as well as for PG programs. So that is going to be there. And as far as you were talking about the examination system and everything and the integration mode, I can only say that first of all, I appreciate UGC and especially even Professor Sahasrabuddhe sir for giving us that very exhaustive guidelines about the examinations, and which are very useful, and remaining within those guidelines, as what Dr. Wag said very rightly, we prepare our own guidelines for the state of Maharashtra. And at the same time, the heterogeneity even in universities is so much that depending upon the conditions everywhere, various options are given to the universities, and same thing will happen even in the state of Maharashtra. And for example, out of total 32 lakh students we have in state universities in Maharashtra, you can get an idea how big University of Mumbai is. Yeah. 1/4 of that, that is nearly more than 8 lakh students belong to University of Mumbai with all the heterogeneity. So there are various challenges we have, and within those, I think we have to also ensure the bright future of students. Thank you.
Great. Sir, considering the fact that it will get a little delayed, you see any shortening of the semesters, or are you seeing any shortening of the cap rounds that are going to happen, considering the lesser number of days in hand?
Definitely, yes. I think we have to ensure that we have to minimize the number of days after the results are declared for the further admission, so that the next academic year should start as early as possible. Because it is very clear that the next academic year is going to commence very late, and whatever losses that had occurred now, we need to ensure that at least the next academic year we will be able to compensate to such an extent. And I'm sure all the stakeholders, including the teaching, non-teaching staff, will cooperate.
Ranjit, I have one point, shall I?
Yeah, sure.
As far as CET is concerned, one food for thought is there. As most of our graduates, engineering graduates, they go for foreign education, especially US and these countries. So there they give exam, GRE exam they give. So this exam can be given throughout the year, and multiple attempts can be given. So similarly, if the higher authorities can think, this CET can be of that sort, once, twice, thrice. If it is possible for our system to give a thought to it, then definitely it will help the students. For example, current situation, if one attempt student could have given earlier, then now that score could have been considered, or something like that. It's just a thought. People can really work on it.
In this, I would like to add just like a half a minute. In fact, even we in our committee have taken a decision that when we're going to conduct CET in July, and July is expected to be very heavy rains in most of the parts in Maharashtra.
Yeah.
So in case any student misses out any exam, I mean the CET examination due to heavy rain or any other reason or because of transport, the student will be given one more opportunity to ensure that nobody is deprived of this examination.
Ranjit, let me throw a light on this, as I am the closest person, I can say closest stakeholder to this CET issue.
Sure.
One thing I'll be happy to share with you that from last year, around 4.5 lakh students, they appear for the CET. It's a big chunk in Maharashtra, you can say, 4.5 lakh students. And last time was the first time for Maharashtra we conducted CET online. And before that, we used to conduct it offline. Now, this is really great for Maharashtra to conduct 4.0 lakh student CET in a one day, then we started having a sessions of PCB sessions and PCM sessions, and we could finish it by five days or so. Now, here onwards, as Professor Ravandale is suggesting, is that, yes, as JEE is conducted, twice in a year, GREs also are there. Why not CET also? So definitely this thought will be taken to, will be taken ahead with the CET commissioner, is the authority in the state of Maharashtra. I will take this thought ahead, and from next year, can we do it in two slots or a two complete in a day? I can say in a month of December and in a month of let us say May or so. If we could have this solution, definitely we'll go ahead with this thought.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
One thing I want to mention in this CET, that if you take the twice or thrice in the year, so syllabus should be considered up till that only. So most of the students are busy with their 12th scores, and they are worried about their 12th score. So previously, in meanwhile situation, the government has considering the 12th score 50% and CET score 50%. That is also the very good model earlier. And if you consider the 12th score also in this situation, that is also be very good for the
Professor Sahasrabudhe, I think you have something to say for sure.
I had many things to say on this issue.
Please.
That the government of India through a parliament has established what is known as National Testing Agency, NTA. This has been in operation for last 2 years now, and Vinit Joshi is the head of this, and he has been handling JEE. and not only JEE but NEET exam and many other examinations which otherwise earlier were being conducted by CBSE. So one of the things which is very important, I think Sheetal Kumar also raised this issue, Sanjay raised some issue, that why there cannot be multiple examinations. Yes, why two? In fact, 4 times in a year, as is done in GRE or TOEFL. So this is number one. And which is possible if there is a national agency doing it rather than every state trying to have its own entrance examination. Second part is all these examinations unfortunately are based on some typical 11th and 12th standard syllabus, and making it national is becoming difficult because each state has its own syllabus. CBSE has its own syllabus, but actual admission should be based on the aptitude and attitude of the student to take up a particular course rather than his knowledge of that physics or chemistry or mathematics, where he is whether fit for engineering or not has to be tested, or medicine, yes or no is to be tested. So I think aptitude based examination has to be in place, and not once or twice but maybe even 4 times in a year. And if this is done, and if every state which has its own reservation formula, admission processes, they can continue to have the processes as usual, except that the merit list is drawn from one central pool. This has multiple advantages. A student need not prepare for every state's entrance examination on one side. There are several private universities conducting their own examination, whether it is BITS Pilani, VIT Vellore, and some other university, I don't know, there are hundreds of them. Each one conducts a separate examination, separate fee. So those who are well off, those who are staying in the cities, they are at an advantage, and someone who is in a remote area who has to come to the city for giving this examination has to give 3-4 examinations. Both cost wise not effective, time wise not effective, and therefore one standard national level examination conducted 4 times in a year is the best solution. Everyone has to come together like one single database. One single examination is also a right way of going forward.
I think
Thank you, Dr. Sahasrabudhe sir. One more insight I want to take in this situation, that earlier there was a traditional courses offered in engineering only, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, computer engineering. But thank you, Dr. Sahasrabudhe sir. He has taken immediate decision, and now they have proposed the computer data science courses, IoT the courses, and robotics and all these new technologies. They are introduced immediately in the all affiliated colleges. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Suhas, do you
Yeah.
regarding the shortening of the we'll come back to the point regarding the shortening of the academic year. The counseling procedure, are there going to be counseling procedure changes? I mean, you used to take like 30 to 45 days for the exam. So you think any changes are going to happen on the counseling perspective?
You mean to say counseling to be provided to student, is it?
Yeah.
I think the post-COVID, whatever changes we will see, the counseling will become a very prominent and important activity in all the education institutions, right from, I would say, nursery to university level. And there has to be a mentor-mentee counseling, and every student should be given a counselor in the form of his or her teacher. And that is very essential. In fact, in University of Mumbai, we already started the online counseling for the students. And even in the report, which was submitted and declared yesterday for the whole conduct of examination, it's not merely report containing only the examination suggestions and recommendations. We have also suggested that every district, there has to be a counseling center to ensure that all the requisite information is given to students immediately. Students will have several issues and problems. There will be personal counseling, counseling related to academics issues and other things. So that will become an, what I'll say, a continuous process. And as you said that, yes, next academic year, there will be probably most of the vacations, they will be curtailed. And we have to ensure that we use most of the time in the teaching, learning, and all other needs of the students, including there are students who want to go abroad or other places for higher educations. We should be able to do that. And now the change will be, we need to provide them every information they need, even through technology or online. We cannot expect students to come physically for everything. So these are some of the student support system. We need to include the technology, not just in teaching learning. Thank you.
Thanks. Professor Sheetal Kumar, my
Yes.
question to you regarding the guidelines that have been issued by AICT with regards to summer internships being made virtual internships.
Right, sir.
Do you really think the virtual internships are going to suffice, considering the fact that that the summer internships have credits allotted to it, and about 10 to 15% of students also get PPOs for them from their internships? Do you think the virtual internships are going to, in a way, suffice for, or maybe substitute the real internships, or maybe having virtual internships now and later on having the summer internships, proper industry internships? What is your thought on that?
Sir, AICT has come up with really good policy. That is, this new AICT policy, it mentions that if you do almost around 600, approximately 600 hours of internship, then probably this industry people will definitely accept it. Most of the industries, when we approached them and asked about, as per AICT discussions, AICT asked us, please check what is the thought of the companies on this AICT new internship policy. So they said that it's very good concept and it will really be a game changer, I will say, because as we say, industry and institutes, they have certain gap in between, and that's why the output of the students, the quality of the students is not up to the mark, because theory exactly nicely or very effectively our faculty is taking, but practical and problem solving approach is missing. And when the students go in the industry, at that time actually they learn many things, live projects they work on. So I think this virtual internship concept is the best concept in the current situation. AICT has also given the guidelines for the safety of the students as well as safety of the workers in the industry. It is really great move, and we are thankful to Sahasrabudhe sir and his team for coming up with this nice policy. This policy will probably help the industry also to understand how the student is, and many of the students will be getting good stipend also. Some companies are providing stipend from 5,000 to literally 50,000. It is as good as job. And probably sir missed that point, Sahasrabudhe sir. So this AICT is helping the student, colleges and the industry also. So probably in next couple of weeks, AICT is coming up with new portal in which students can log in, companies can log in, and even TPO can log in. And this will be really good platform for all the stakeholders, virtual as well as physical internships they are going to provide, and they are reaching to many industry bodies also. You know, in one of the meetings which we attended at AICT, CII was there, NASCOM was there, and so many industry bodies were there. I think this is really good solution for current scenario, and thanks to AICT team for the good initiative.
Great. Dr. Wagh, do you see summer internships being considered in different semesters now, considering the situation in hand?
Surely, why not? See, I will so rather, I had rather a very first model when I was director MSBT. It was the first time in whole India we conducted, that is 2 years back, that it was my idea. Why not? See, basically, when we talk about employability by and large, then why not? Is there any real connect between industry and institute is happening in a real way? So that was the question in front of me. And then I started a very close loop work. Hello? Yeah, close working with all. And that time I gave the first model to Maharashtra, saying that hub and spoke. Why not we create a one hub industry in that particular region, under real by 15 to 16 institutions, maybe polytechnics in that region can be the spokes of that region. And that way that model was very successful, and we could carry out 28,000 internship 2 years back. And then I'm happy to share with you all that polytechnics, now the new curricula has come last time, and therein internship is the criteria which is embedded in the curricula itself, and we have given a credits to them. Now coming to this situation of COVID, surely why not virtual? I mean, see, the doing internships is a two-way. One can be a virtual internship, and one can be a actual going in industries and work. Why can't be government institutions and government establishment we should use for them? Yes, MSCB like institutions, PWD like institutions, or all other like government establishments also we can use for the internship. So the virtual model is quite useful for all of us. As my colleague said now, there's a different models you can try even of the, I can say the market is forcing us to do something like internships. Like when you talk about internship, why not entrepreneurship we should think? Because COVID gives us forcefully entrepreneurship. So we people should give training to the students, or some skilling has to happen in that area, wherein this forcefully entrepreneurship, this component has to be enhanced a lot hereafter, what I suppose. And this is a opportunity I'm observing in post-COVID situation. Our students, not only internships, but entrepreneurships should be concentrated in a larger way. Their projects has to be taken ahead. Let us incubate their project. Let us work on those their projects, incubate their ideas in a incubation centers, and convert them into patentize them, and take them a good startup can we have out of that. That can be a wonderful solution to the Maharashtra as well as the nation as such. And those entrepreneurs will be really needed in coming economic situation, what we are observing post-COVID. So I suppose all these types of internships and with a forceful entrepreneurships are very much important today's day. And we all stakeholders should look closely in this loop, what I say. Thank you.
Taran, 1 second, please. I want to, as there are all three different authorities like University Representative, DT and AICT, all the higher authorities are there. I would like to suggest, as Sahasrabuddhe sir pointed out, there should be perfect coordination between these various bodies. As far as internship is concerned, one problem we are facing, we TPOs are facing is that when we are sending the students for internship, that attendance sometimes in some universities is not concerned. So 75% attendance is necessary as per university norms. And when students are going to these different companies, I think it should be considered. And a second point is that in most of the universities, even in our Pune University, there is no much gap between 2 semesters. So if you want to send the students for this internship, one entire semester should be free. And otherwise, this will be difficult if time is not there.
So may I come in with few other
Professor Sahasrabudhe, please continue.
happening. Number one, when we say internship is made mandatory for last 2 years, now the third year students are going to be involved in that. Those who are in the fourth year, that time it was not mandatory. So there are various types of options which are given. We always give several options, because one cap fits for all does not happen in our country with so much of diversity, so much of differences that exist. So one of them is why not have summer internships, 2 or 3 summers, 2 months each, or even 1 month of winter vacation and 1 month, 1.5 months of summer vacation taken together like this, 3 times, 4 times students can go to the industry for internship. Second, entire semester, if the university curriculum permits, you can allow students to go for internship. So the internship can be this. Then internship can be whether it is in a large industry like TCS or Infosys or Tata Steel or Maruti Udyog. It could be in MSME. It could be in startup. It could be under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan going to the villages. It could be all variety, including now the internship which is online. Where many companies were saying that we can't allow more than 50 students to come in our premises. But if you ask us that we should give 500 internships, we will give different 500 problems as well as mentors to undertake that particular internship by being at home or in your own institution. So all of these are treated as internship for first thing. And this is very important because learning something outside the classroom is more significant, so that he's sensitized to the real life, real world problems, and that is what his internship is all about. Secondly, our portal is ready, as said by Dr. Sheetal Kumar. So the portal will be launched very soon, but it has 2 other elements. Dr. Wag said, why not government departments? In fact, we started that last year, but this time in a big way, The Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in the budget itself had mentioned that there will be internship which industries have to provide. In fact, that is post the graduation is over for one year, something like apprenticeship. But we are having both models, apprenticeship model as well as while student is studying, both models exist. And Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and as well as the large scale civil engineering students for whom the road building, road construction is very important. We have National Highway Authority of India have come out with several thousands of internships, which are all at the civil administrative bodies at the local level, right from Gram Panchayat to the smart city level.
Professor Sahasrabudhe, I have a question for you regarding one aspect which is very commendable for the Apex body is creation of the online content, free online content on your portal. Something which is very commendable. My question is regarding that how the government is actually is government firstly planning to build such courses or content online, and what is the scope of these online content? Will these translate into degrees or certifications later on? I mean, is government actually planning to get into online degrees as well? Recently, only 7 to 8 universities have been allowed to give online degrees. What's your perspective here, sir?
There are three different issues in this, which you had a very loaded question. So I would like to split that into different parts.
Yeah.
As online content is concerned, right from NPTEL days for about more than a decade, we have had online content available on NPTEL. We graduated to the MOOCs platform, which is a higher version of what NPTEL had. But it is now not only engineering, but in all other domains, which I said in the beginning. That is, whether it is arts, commerce, science, engineering, including coaching for students who are appearing in the JEE examination, which is called as IIT PAL. So I think the breadth has increased with large number of courses, now 2,500. And this will continue to grow. So maybe the vision is maybe they will reach some 10,000 courses in the next couple of years. So the number of courses will increase on one side. And then UGC and AICTE had mandated that up to 20% of the credits of your university curriculum can be taken from out of these MOOCs platforms. Now this will be expanded to probably 30 or 40%, so making more of an online possibility existing. When it comes to full-fledged degree being awarded through the online mode, I think the time has not ripened up, but there is a possibility that some of the courses, for example, areas such as say sociology, so such as English literature, I think that is where there is hardly any practical content where you can easily transgress from earlier face-to-face mode of degrees to maybe ODL, which existed for quite some time, whether it is Nasik's Open University or IGNOU. So we can have an online degree also in certain domains and areas. When it comes to the courses like, engineering or in science, maybe chemistry or maybe medicine, I think you will not have these degrees immediately possible because there is a lot of practical content, hands-on experience which is required. You can have complementary role of the online education in terms of even virtual labs, virtual experiments. But ultimately, a person has to have a hands-on experience on the equipment and the machinery that he is to handle in the real life. And therefore, the full degree may take little more time in some domains. In some domains, it has already started.
Great. Dr. Suhas, do you see any changes with respect to fee structures, reservations, considering the situation in hand? Do you see any changes happening?
As far as the current situation all over the country is concerned, I don't think there will be any fee revision. I do not know because but as you know that the entire COVID pandemic situation is going to slow down the economy in every way. So considering the situation, in fact, one of the outcome of this COVID pandemic, it is expected that there can be fall in the enrollment and there will be some more dropouts because of, is a migrant workers who have moved from their the locations. There are families where they live hand to mouth and whether they'll be able to afford the fees. So I do not think there will be a fee rise in the coming year for the coming academic year. As far as the reservation is concerned, that's a matter of constitutional right. So I think there is that will continue as it is. So I don't think there is anything in that respect.
Any changes in subsidies or maybe the scholarships that is given?
What I feel, considering what I said just now, the government or from every possibility, we need to provide more scholarships to the students to encourage them to continue their education so as to minimize the dropout rate, and will also ensure that those students otherwise who remain deprived of higher education, at least through the scholarship and other financial support, we must bring them in the stream. Otherwise, this COVID-19 pandemic after effects that will, in fact, bring a lot of changes in the families who are otherwise unable to afford it. So more scholarships are definitely required to encourage students to continue with their education. Yes.
Taran, here
Yeah.
I think we should get some booster. For example, different sectors, government is giving them some funds, etc. So here in education sector also, some sort of application should go from institute sides, etc. Because on one hand, authorities are saying we cannot collect fees from the students. On the other hand side, again, authorities are saying that colleges have to give salaries to the employees regularly. So somehow, and this is the end of the year. So maybe, yes, Sir Subudhe sir, I think want to say something.
I will just take half a minute before Sir Subudhe sir. See, another important challenge of the educational institutions will face because of this current situation. You know that most of the institutions, they are running two types of programs. One, the government aided, and second is called self-finance program. And the self-finance program are run mainly on the basis of or on the fees collected from the students. Even the salaries of teaching, non-teaching are paid from the fees collected from the students. And if these institutions do not collect these fees on time, there is a real challenge which is already started as how to pay the salaries of teachings, definitely.
I think both of you have raised an issue which AICT had sent out a circular, even MHRD has sent. So I would like to place on record clarification on both the fronts. Number one, you asked about not increasing the fees. Yes, Honorable Minister for HRD, Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal himself has sent a message to all the education ministers of all the states, and the Secretary Higher Education, Dr. Khare, Amit Khare, has also sent to all the principal secretaries that you don't allow additional fees to be charged this year. This is only for this year. And as far as fee being not charged is concerned, I think this is again wrong perception. What we have said is during pandemic, don't force students to pay the fees, because some of the students who can pay, they may be able to pay, but many students who depend on bank loan, they will have to go to the bank, and bank cannot give the loan on online mode. You have to go physically and sign a form and some affidavit, and only then bank will give the loan. And therefore, after the pandemic is over and full-fledged banks open up, students can take the loan and then they can pay the fees. And there is no time which has come for payment of the fees as yet, because the new academic session is yet to start in somewhere in July, August. What has happened is there are postgraduate diploma management institutes. This was mainly directed at them. They start their admission well in advance, somewhere around February, March itself, and their fees are also very high, of the order of few lakhs of rupees, some of them ranging from 4 lakh, 6 lakh, 8 lakh, 12 lakh, 18 lakh. And if they ask advance fees to be paid in such a situation where student is not in a position to take the loan, I think that is very bad in law and in every respect. And that is where we have come heavily on that. When it comes to the salary, I think there is some challenge from the institutions that they have not got their fee reimbursement, which has to come from the state governments. Otherwise,
Right,
all the students who had joined last year, their fee would have been already collected. So where is the question of not paying the salaries for these faculty members of their institutions? The problem could be few students who were not in a position to pay the scholarship, fees. They may be only exceptions, and for them, you can always do an exemption, or you can say that you can pay it little later. But 95% of the students who joined last year in July would have paid the full fees for the whole year. So where is the question of not paying the salary for the faculty members? I don't understand. Many managements actually twist the whole thing and then start projecting as though there is a great difficulty. As far as even state governments are concerned, they're paying off the fee which was supposed to be given on time. The delays happened not this year, delays happen for all these years. I know for last 5-6 years there have been delays of 2 to 3 years, but especially this year, both Secretary Higher Education and me myself, we have written to all the principal secretaries to release all the pending dues of the colleges so that they can in turn pay the salaries. So I think whatever we have to do as a regulator, we have done our task. And I think I should place on record some misconceptions that are there. On one side, you don't ask the students to pay the fees. When in July session starts with full opening up of the economy as well as opening up of this, students can go to the bank and collect the loan, and then they will have to pay the fees. I'm not saying they will all get free education.
Thank you, Sahasrabudhe sir.
Taranju.
1 minute I can say.
See,
Yes,
this is all, I mean, everybody, if you see in a different aspect as far as scholarships, as far as affordability is concerned, I'm sure that can't we think, all of us sitting here, when we are talking on all digital models in front of us, can't we have such a model placed in front which will be affordable to the last corner of the student sitting in this university in a rural area also. So see, this is very complex subject. State governments have their problems of funding, which I know Maharashtra state, as far as it is concerned, as on today, generally in the month of March, it collects 40,000 crore lakhs rupees only as a revenue coming in. But this time we could have only 10,000 crores. That means we are lacking with the 1/3 amount because of COVID. Now, these are the situation of the state governments. Will not go in details of that. I'm coming on an issue that it can be really a good, re-exercising the things that can we give a model to a state or a nation which is affordable to a last corner of a student who is sitting in a rural area and a tribal area of this country. Thank you.
Dr. Sahasrabudhe, question regarding the now let's focus a little more on the post-COVID world. Do you see any collaborations happening with many edtech companies are actually working with universities for providing degrees. However, the authenticity of it is still questionable. Do you see any accreditations working towards it, or any recognition being given by AICTE to specific courses?
No, already the SWAYAM platform, which started off with specific mainly government institutions creating the courses, has opened up for even private institutions to come up with some courses and will be online. Number one, so that is one empowerment which has happened. Second is about various tech companies who have their own products, which are, in fact, AICTE has a portal called as NEET, National Educational Alliance for Technologies.
Yeah.
Initiated by MHRD, but we have onboarded several companies, about 16 companies, around 30 products, which are all paid seats actually.
Yeah.
Only condition that we had put is there would be selection of these companies based on blind review, without knowing the name of the company, only based on the product, the quality, what they are going to achieve through that outcomes. And then we will look at actual product, and once uploaded onto the platform, for every 4 seats which are procured by the students, they have to give 1 seat free for our brothers and sisters in the rural areas, SC, ST, economically poor students. They should get free seats. So this was an idea, and we started off with that. I'm very happy that out of these companies also, despite that being allowed to be charged, many companies during this lockdown time, or they said that their products would be available free of cost during this next 2-3 months, and many more companies came, and so we have a one portal where all such technology products which are free are there, and even NEET portal where part of them are free, part of them are chargeable. So I think this is already in existence. Now, some of these, if the respective universities feel that the quality of that particular product or the course is substantially good as much as that of a SWAYAM portal, onload that onto the SWAYAM. So SWAYAM is going to be more liberal. So you can have courses from many players in the SWAYAM 2.0. SWAYAM 1 was the first basis, which were all government mostly. SWAYAM 2.0 has all these facilities, and once selected based on the quality testing, maybe credit transfer is also possible. And UGC is also talking about what is known as credit banking. I don't know whether some of you have heard that. The recommendation is yet to come, but how one can go through some courses from some X university, some other courses from Y university, earn credits, some maybe from a private entrepreneur, collect all of them, and then based on that, a university which appreciates all of those credits as which are suitable for award of a degree may get a degree. So I think we are moving slowly in that direction. The regulations are not in place, so I don't want to preempt many things which are being talked about in the government, many committees which are giving the recommendations. Maybe it will take a couple of years' time to fructify.
Great. We have a question for Dr. Wagh, specifically from the questions. Is that how are you planning to conduct the cap rounds, as it takes about 45 days for counseling, considering the time span have already shortened? Sir, how are you planning to conduct the cap rounds?
So let me tell you, in Maharashtra there is an authority working on this all CETs which we have planned, and CET commissionerate is there, wherein we will be supporting to them. The Honorable Minister has formulated one committee under his chairmanship. Myself is a member to that and supporting him for this all CETs coming up. Keeping up the calendar which has been given by AICT to all the state governments, definitely we'll be planning that as CETs will be conducted in the month of July itself. 1st July to 15th July, we have planned the CETs, all the UG level CETs. And from 19th July onwards to 31st of July, we have planned the CETs of PG, all programs of PGs. And we may expect the results in the first, let us say by 1st of August. And after that, surely we will be following the calendar as it has been given, that up to 15th August, we should have our first round completed. And the second round, we will try to complete by 25th of August. Whether earlier we used to have definitely the 4 rounds, but in this COVID situation, we will have to think, and we are closely working on that. Even the system analyst and all technical persons in my office, we are continuously sitting on that. Can we have a software this time which will really club this situation, and we can crunch it, and we can see out of these 4 rounds coming only 2 rounds in the state of Maharashtra. It will be really better, keeping us the calendar which has been given by AICT and the Supreme Court guidelines, of course, and Maharashtra will follow those in details so that we can complete it. And as UGC says us that 1st of September, your term should start. So we'll definitely plan it that way, and we are very positive looking towards that. And I'm sure our technical team will come with some solutions, and we'll try to help the students. And definitely one thing we'll be doing in these all cap rounds, earlier I think you must be knowing, student has to go to the different centers, what we call as a facilitation center, for their showing their original documents, right from their 10th, 12th, and whatever their mark memos and all, their caste validity certificates and all. This time we are also planning that, can we have an e-scrutiny of these documents, and there will be a reverse mechanism as well working for in a form of technical digital portal, which will take care of their flaws within system in their mark sheets or so that we can have this e-scrutiny done, and then time and the social distancing, which is essential in this particular COVID. We will try to see that students will not come at the center, and e-scrutiny will be taken care, and the social distancing will be in place. As they are sitting in their home, they can do this e-scrutiny of their documents. So by all this, following all this, I'm sure that we can complete this admission procedure within well-framed timeline. Thank you.
Great, Dr. Wagh. Dr. Suhas, apart from the engineering courses, any specific guidelines for arts, commerce, and science students?
From the report we submitted?
Yeah.
Now, you are talking about the guidelines regarding the examination, you mean to say?
Yeah, guidelines regarding examinations, how the semesters are going to happen from those perspective. Considering arts is itself, it's very creative field, and you need a lot of practicals. So from that perspective, I'm just asking because a lot of art students are also asking this question.
No, you're talking about for next academic year or?
So the current academic year and the upcoming academic year, both. If you give this guideline.
See, as far as the current academic year, the examination is concerned, we have used all the guidelines that is suggested by UGC as well as by AICT. And as Professor Sahasrabuddhe said very rightly, many options are given in those guidelines. And considering the all universities situated at different places, the current COVID-19 pandemic situation varies from district to district. So the university will be given an opportunity to use the correct mode of examination, which is suitable for them, by ensuring that the students will not be deprived of this opportunity. And as far as the first year, or rather except last year examinations, or the students of last year, that is either diploma, PG or UG students, all other students, they will be given grading on the basis of UGC guidelines, on the basis of their previous performance and the internals. As far as the next academic year is concerned, of course, we haven't thought of or not prepared yet. But what I learned that the state government is in the process of forming maybe one more advisory committee to think about the future course. Not only that, they are also likely to form a committee to examine what % of teaching learning should be or can be on online mode, how to equate online teaching with the regular workload, and what about the training that is required, because capacity building is very essential. You may be aware that the state government of Maharashtra, they have established a teacher training school at Pune, how that can be utilized in capacity building, especially for teachers using online mode. Because even preparing the e-content or delivering lectures online is not easy. We have to maintain that standard, and we need to give them training. So that is going to take up. So these are some of the aspects. And every university, as I said earlier, will form their, what do you say, the circular, and will decide the actual mode of examinations for their own students for the coming year. And that examination will be conducted the 1st to 31st July of this for this academic year. Thank you.
Great. We don't have much of time, and we still have 3 to 4 questions, and we have about 5 minutes in hand. Professor Sheetal Kumar, the role of MART-EPO, the role of MART-EPO in the post-COVID world. What do you think that role is going to increase, considering the fact that a lot of the industry is looking for skilled people. The students already have a lot of time sitting at home. What role will MART-EPO play here in skilling those people and meeting the industry trends in the short term and in the long term also, to take care of that in the times to come?
Yeah, MART-EPO is conducting many webinars also. And as I said, almost around 25 webinars we have conducted. This included technical, this included maybe behavioral skills kind of stuff, and vice presidents to directors, many of the industries, they are helping us for these particular events. Recently, under the guidance of Honorable Dr. Abhay Wagh sir, we conducted one meeting of all the principals, training placement officers across Maharashtra. And sir has given us good guidelines that we can form clusters of say industries in one particular region and colleges in that particular region. So he has already successfully implemented it for diploma. So now we are planning it for engineering, and already we have created groups across Maharashtra as far as TPOs and principals are concerned. And before a couple of days, as per his guidelines, we have connected with one big organization, Vibrant HR Professionals Association. So here also around 5,000 company HRs are there, And now we have we are about to form one calendar. Throughout the year, we will conduct activities, maybe expert sessions for the students, then projects for the students, internship for the students. So this is the good initiative, and sir has some other plans also. So we have already discussed, and maybe in next couple of months, we will be conducting one aptitude test. Last year we conducted this test that is called as MATPO Aptitude Idol, in which, because first step is aptitude test, second is group discussion, then technical interview and personal interview. So for this particular, for improving the skills of our Maharashtra students, we have started this initiative. Last year, around 43,000 students, to our surprise, enrolled for this test, and we got good results out of it. So this year also, probably in next couple of weeks, we will be floating this, because we generally conduct this test before the campus season start. And I would like to request students also, many TPOs are also there, they can convey this to their students. Now for 2020 batch, which is already final year batch, their 70% placement has already been happened. But we are worried about 2021 batch. Fortunately, most of the companies whom we are contacting, they are saying we will honor the offer letters. But
Great.
still, some of them are saying that we may delay, and very few of them are saying we probably have to revoke it. But our request will be, as ministers, many central ministers are also saying, requesting the companies to not withdraw those offers. So that will be request through the College Dunia platform. You please also appeal. We are appealing the industries. It's a kind of engagement with that student has already happened. Ring ceremony has happened, and now we cannot withdraw. So please, even though salary cuts are there, it's fine with our students, but please do not revoke the offer letters.
Great, quite reassuring. Professor Sahasrabudhe, quickly we would like to know your viewpoint on one very specific and one very important aspect considering this COVID situation. In post-corona world, do you see the accreditations having a very higher weightage for the digital infrastructure the universities and colleges are building?
Absolutely. There would be more emphasis on digital infrastructure, because this was a sudden movement where this crisis has come up. We never know, in future also, anytime such things can happen, and therefore our preparedness is very important. And as far as even government is concerned, when it comes to infrastructure, we always talked about roads, railways, highways, airports. I think the ICT infrastructure, in terms of reaching to remote places, in terms of actual high fiber connectivity with high bandwidth, I think that is also going to be a very important one. And in turn, for colleges, in fact, if you look at AICT's track record last 4-5 years, that we are reducing the requirements in certain issues like number of classrooms, number of tutorial rooms, number of books of the library, physical books. Whereas we are increasing the e-books, we are increasing the internet bandwidth, because internet bandwidth cost is reducing every year. It becomes half. So for the same price, you can get actually more than double, triple bandwidth or the internet speed. And why not you keep on investing the same amount but get more and more facility developed in the organization? And that way we have been going ahead. I'm sure, I think we will have a lot of infrastructure development which will have a very important value in the accreditation process.
Great. Dr. Suhas, your perspective here, do you see digital infrastructure being a key value for the universities and many more universities which will be coming up?
Definitely, and I fully agree with what Professor Sahasrabudhe has said, because the future belongs to technology, and we need to bring in education, and we have to invest more in building this ICT infrastructure. And more than that, as what even he said very rightly, we have to take care of the students and try to reach to unreachable. So that is where I think we have to, even preparing the quality e-contents on the basis of the infrastructure, because this, what you call it, the physical distancing will continue for some more time, and we have no option but to strengthen the ICT infrastructure. And we may have to even ensure that the good teachers coming together, the whole state, not just belonging to one university, the universities should work together and share the good facilities. As I said earlier, physical infrastructure as well as intellectual. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Dr. Wagh, your thoughts, please.
Yeah. Basically, we all are discussing this, but are we really expecting? We have a resilient model working in the state or in a nation is very important. I mean to say, resilience, I mean to say, it should be able to come back to its original shape and work. Because different newses are coming from the media, scientists nationally, internationally, they are stating that there can be a chances of the waves. I don't expect this, but there can be chances of waves, there can be chances of recurrences, what we talk about. And if so, then is our education system in India is a resilience one? Can we have and can we work with that resistance as we have as on today? That is the real point of question here lies with me. So for that, I'm expecting, see, it should be a resilient system two ways. One, I'm saying that when everybody is talking on e-platform, I mean to say e-model, wherein e-contents is there, e-delivery, I mean e-teaching learning process is there. Third is e-examination and e-evaluation. This is all e-model. We are all talking since last 1.5 hours or so. But really, right from Gadchiroli University, what I have in Maharashtra, is there capacity building in place? If all these universities, what you are just saying just now, I'm really worried on this front that we, first of all, should concentrate all of us on a digital infrastructure, maybe a hardware structure, maybe a broadband line connectivity reaching to a last corner of my student. Maybe they have a smartphone or a gadgets in their hand. I don't know. We don't have even a studio and a smart classes reached everywhere in every institution. Virtual laboratories are not there. See, these are the points wherein a real work has to be done right with every stakeholder, not even universities, in an institution level, in a directorate level, everywhere, all together, we should come as a team. And we should see that, yes, a capacity building in terms of all this, what I said, if in a real sense, then this e-model with this capacity building that can club and I can come up with a fantastic solution to the nation, which I can say it's a resilience model, which should work and which should work in whatever the disruptions coming here onwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Wagh. Professor Sahasrabudhe, do you see the private universities specifically? They have a recommendation with respect to the starting of the batches. Can we have one batch starting, let's say, in Professor Sahasrabudhe, are you with us?
I think it was not very audible, but whatever I got it, I think starting off 2 different batches at different timings. That's what is being talked about.
No, the question is that can we have a phase-wise batch? This is the last question of the evening. Can we have a last phase-wise batch? One batch starting, say, in September, the other batch starting in January. Can we have that? Specifically,
so that already exists for open and distance learning or online learning. There are batches which are in 2 different semesters, but we didn't have anything like this for the normal face-to-face.
Normal, yeah, the normal.
But what we have done is, if you look at the UGC's notification, that even if student joins, don't insist on passing certificate till December. So that time is already given. So classes can still start in September or somewhere around September middle. But the batch which is prescribed right now is only a single batch, in terms of online. Online it is possible to have 2 batches, but not in the face-to-face mode.
Great. We have reached to
can I add? Can I take half a minute?
Yes, Dr. Suhas, please. Dr. Suhas.
Yeah, see, considering the student population in the classrooms, especially in the state universities and the affiliated colleges, one of the possibility because of the social distancing will continue. There could be a possibility that instead of calling all 100 students at a time, we may have to call maybe only half the students to ensure the social distancing.
Yes.
Half will stay back home and will be the online learning will be available. The next half will come next day. Something maybe that 3 days a week they will come to classes.
Yeah.
3 days they will stay back home. So some sort of models we need to come up with to ensure that we will be able to blend the campus teaching as well as the online teaching. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Suhas. Today morning there was an interaction with some couple of universities in the morning. Same thing came up. I think one of the ideas is precisely this. Why not call those who have got ability to have online education from home, let them be allowed. So universities should not be, too much insistent on physical, attendance. They might have attendance from home or attendance from within the class, so social distancing can be maintained, and still we can have one session, but people will be distributed either alternate days, 3 days in a week. This set people will come, or some people may come all the time, and some people will all the time take the education from online. I think all possible models exist.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Professor Jadhav, your thoughts on this and your last comments, please. Your last thought, your last comments on the, yeah. Please,
So
please.
I have one request for the Dr. Sarvabhuja sir. Three authorities are there. So I have one request that can we add stress management and human influence subject in our curriculum, or can weekly 1 or 2 lectures can be happen for that? Some of university has implemented that in the curriculum. And second thing, as per the Abhay Vaksar said, it's rightly said, can we add one entrepreneur, a pre-final year subject as an entrepreneur subject? One add one subject as an entrepreneur, how to become an entrepreneur, or some practical session or 1 or 2 guidance session should be there. So that will be very effective for all the students. Third thing, I'm very much thankful to Dr. Sarvabhuja sir that he has taken a lot of initiative, and in the 6th pay he has included the TPO post as a and also George Pednekar sir. He has given all instructions to all institutes to approve the TPOs from all institutes. So, but really we need to pass this information to all the colleges that TPO role is now very important, and I request these authorities, please look in this matter and
Thanks, Dr. Jadhav. Thanks, Dr. Jadhav. Is running a little late. Professor Sheetal Kumar, your closing remarks, please.
Yeah, I think when the students are given this opportunity of having ample time, at that time, this student should practice. Those students who are right now in the 3rd year and will be going for final year, they should practice for aptitude as well as mock tests as well as mock interviews. Just for example, in our Pimpri Chinchwad Education Trust, 3,000 plus online courses our students have done, and each and every student, almost around 1,200 students, they have undergone group discussions as well as personal interviews. So this will really help, and instead of thinking about big companies wherein their numbers might be less, we have to think about small scale companies also, because if you see overall second largest job provider or second largest part after agriculture in India is MSME sector, and almost 36.1 million units are there, and 50% of total of the GDP, it is going to be there through MSME. So right now it is 29%, it will be up to 50%. So students have to consider this, because right now MSME is giving 11 crore jobs to various people, and by 25, 15 crore jobs will be available in MSME sector. So students should think about these options. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks a lot, Professor Sheetal Kumar. Dr. Suhas Pednekar, your closing remarks, please.
Regarding?
Your closing remarks regarding COVID and the students who are listening to it.
Okay. No, I can see. I can only say that what we need to learn, all, not just students, but I think all the stakeholders of the education system, that we need to acquire 2 important qualities. That is, one is resilience, and second is adaptability. And ultimately, I can say that all the situations which we see around us, the educational institutions are expected to play a very important role. And considering this unforeseen situation which we are unaware of and taken rather very unaware, we need to introduce some more maybe program for all the students in terms of their health and disaster management. There has to be some part of teaching to all the students of all the classes in terms of what you call as to be as a sort of a rakshak, and how to act as the disaster management. And we need to prepare the next generation to face any such eventuality if it comes in future, to face that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Suhas. Dr. Abhay Wagh, sir, over to you, sir. Your closing remarks.
Sir, Taranjot, I started my talk, opened my talks with VUCA. And as I know, yes, everybody will agree. Yes, we are in this, situated in this VUCA world. An answer in a one line, if somebody asks me, the answer is change, as I said. Yes, we have to change innovatively every day with skills enhancement in us. Definitely we can do better for tomorrow. Secondly, coming to a model, what I am proposing here onwards, that keeping today's capacity building, what I look after all the universities, all the stakeholders in front of me, like from institutions and the states, I'm proposing here a lead model, that is learning at your doorstep. Because it should be a hybrid model working as on today. If I want to start with this online teaching learning processes, if our capacity buildings are not yet as we require, then why should not we have a print model? We should have a digital model. We should have a use of TV and radio as much, because that is untouched nowadays. Why not we should have a channel, whole channel for education for 3 hours or so. An engineering stream can be given, MBA stream can be given this particular education. And these four components, if I join, print model, mobile model, digital model and a TV model, this can be a better hybrid model we can give as on today. And the universities are starting now this academic year, now within a month or so. I suppose that unless and until they are ready with the capacity buildings, as we discussed with the studios and whatnot, the connectivity problems and the reaching to a last corner of the students, why not this hybrid model we should start? This blended approach will certainly suffice the purpose. And what UGC says us that yes, we should have 75% face-to-face learning and 25% at least credits has to be given with the online learning. So this 75-25 blended model, we will also try to achieve that particular what UGC is saying. And that is what I'm proposing here, that lead model, which is learning at your doorstep. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Wagh. Professor Sahasrabudhe, sir, your closing remarks on the discussion, please.
It was very enriching experience with views of all of them, all co-panelists. Wonderful ideas came up. And at the end, when Dr. Pednekar said about how we have to also have a course or some preparedness on disaster management, I remember or recollect when Bhuj earthquake took place, in engineering curriculum for all civil engineers regarding earthquake, special courses were designed. But we always react to the situation. And on the other hand, if there are some courses introduced into the curriculum, for example, mandatory environment education, mandatory human values education, so people will start asking questions as to what is the importance of this. They are come for studying particular engineering or particular course. Why are you teaching us this? I think we only realize that value during the times of crisis. So I think what he said is absolutely right. We should have a very holistic course where we have universal human values, helping each other, also learn about how do we address all type of disasters. It may be earthquake, flood, or anything like that. So I think a course of that nature is also very, very important and significant. And I will come back to Dr. Abhay Wagh. When you said there are different mediums to be used, and probably many people are not aware, we all talk about Swayam, which is an MOOCs platform, but there are 32 direct-to-home Swayam Prabha channels. And these are all exactly the same courses which are there in Swayam are all there on the medium of TV. You require one single antenna which costs about 2,000 rupees, and all 32 channels direct to home are all free of cost available. And during this pandemic, we observed the number of people using the channel, and the viewership has increased phenomenally, at least 5-fold. Otherwise, people who are in rural areas, they will get it. Only problem with this type of mode of education is it's a one-way traffic. They can't ask immediate questions and satisfy their thirst for knowledge. The difficulty that they have faced, they will have to wait for that. And that is only difficulty in this TV channel. Otherwise, this is already existing. 32 channels are there. One more additional 33rd channel is given to AICT's, MHRD's innovation cell. We will soon be starting a channel fully on innovation itself. And entrepreneurship Dr. Sanjay, you said, or someone said that earlier, that entrepreneurship is already part of the curriculum and one can take a course on entrepreneurship. And the last one I would like to say, Abhay, you use the word VUCA word twice. So I would like to reflect that although VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous, I want to reverse the trend, say that ambiguity to be replaced by adaptability and good attitude and the right attitude, and complexity should be replaced by collaboration and commitment by the people, and uncertainty by universal human values and unity amongst us. And if you do that, that volatility will evaporate and we will be victors over not only COVID,
Yes.
but else on the planet actually.
Right.
Very true.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very-
That is what I said. The answer to that was innovative thinking, and this is what innovative thinking came from you. I'm really happy for that.
No, very well said, Professor Sahasrabudhe sir.
Very well said, Professor Sahasrabudhe. Really commendable.
Really,
talk
really
to all the panelists for that matter. I mean, it's quite needless to say that the pandemic is transforming the centuries-old chalk and talk teaching model to one which is driven by technology. When in these times of crisis, of well-rounded and effective educational practices, what is the need for the capacity building? As Dr. Wak also mentioned, that the need of capacity building of the young minds. We have to develop the skills that will drive the employability, productivity, health, and well-being, not just now, for the decades to come as well, and ensure the overall progress for India. I mean, thanks a lot, panelists. Thanks a lot, and thanks to all the viewers for joining in. I hope that was a very commendable, very enriching session. And see you next week as well on 13th of May for the next session. Thanks a lot, panelists. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
a lot
very
to
much.
College Dinia team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ranjot, and thanks to College Dunia.
Thank you.
Thank you, College Dunia team. Thank you. Thank you very much for this wonderful session. And thank you, Abhay sir. Thank you, Sahasrabudhe sir.